you, Shireen, and thank you very much for this opportunity to present to you virtually today. I really appreciate it, and I'm thankful for the platform to be able to do this from. And today what I want to talk to you about is maintaining productive momentum in a rapidly evolving DNA lab. This is a reality for my laboratory right now, as we've spent the last several months becoming much more productive in the work that we do. And it's one thing to be able to become more productive and change what needs to be changed to get there, but it's quite another issue to maintain that productivity, because there's various factors involved in how you move from where you were to where you want to be and keeping that going in the right direction. So if you'll indulge me for just a few minutes today, I would love to just share with you my thoughts and experiences from our team's perspective as to how we are doing and getting towards where we eventually want to be. Now, this is something that nobody wants to hear from any biologist. That's the facts of life, but I'm going to share them with you anyway, especially when it comes to the facts regarding having to change, because some of it is hard. Change is really hard when it comes down to implementing it. Change is also fairly uncomfortable for the most part, because we get pretty comfortable in our routines, in our processes. We get comfortable with the people that we work with. And so to change all of that is quite uncomfortable. And it's also exhausting. Change at first can be exciting, but it's almost like an adrenaline kick where you start to do something and everybody gets excited and can see the big picture. But after you've been going for a little while and that initial excitement is worn off, you suddenly get exhausted. And it's really important in the middle of all of this that you can still maintain momentum. Change is also risky. So going into any kind of full-scale change, especially within a laboratory that's doing very important work that affects people's lives on a daily basis, you have to weigh up the risk. Is changing this process, or is changing this instrument, or is changing this chemistry, or is even changing to a different workflow and different personnel being involved, is it worth the risk? And so that is something that is a fact of implementing change so that you can continue to evolve as a DNA laboratory. And in forensics, of course, change is slow. So back to that first point of implementing because of excitement and knowing that you want to see the end product of the big picture. In forensics, we all know that that now takes a long time. For some good reasons, of course, we deal in a legal system that has to be very careful, and rightly so, that everything is tested and validated and tested again and changed and tweaked and trained, and everything involved with it takes time. And so just by expressing the fact that you want to move to a better way of doing things, a more productive way of doing things, doesn't necessarily mean that that idea is going to be implemented anytime soon. So in the maintenance of the momentum, especially within the arena of forensics, it can be quite frustrating to implement change, because we know ahead of time that it's going to take a long time to get to where you want to be. But on the upside, change is certainly necessary. We're a scientific field, and we need to move with the science. We need to move with the technology. We need to be able to offer to our community, our customers, the people we serve on a daily basis, we need to offer them the latest and the greatest as is appropriate. So we can't stay back in the ways that we were doing things 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years ago. Change is absolutely necessary so that we can give the best possible work product to those people that we serve every day. And change can and should be productive. And if it's not, then you start again or you scrap it. But that's part of the risk that you've assessed before you've gone into this endeavor. So for us, what has changed? In reality, we have become fully staffed over the last couple of years, which is something that I know many labs struggle with. But for ourselves, one of the big changes that needed to be made was more personnel. And so I'm thrilled, as are our management team, that we have people in place at the appropriate level to do the job that we want to do. We've changed our training program, which came with its pros and its cons, but instead of doing things a certain way and waiting for everybody to train in the entire process, we've gone to a task-based training program where we can introduce our analysts, especially the new folks who've just come on board, into the actual workflow at a necessary stage so that we can, one, make them feel productive, but two, and more importantly, improve our workflow with their input into these key areas. Because of that, and because of our instrumentation and our upgrades through technologies and validations, we've increased our throughput capacity in the last 10 to 15 months by 500%. That doesn't mean that that's what we're seeing yet, but we've given ourselves that room to grow. And that is really encouraging for us, sometimes a little scary, but it's certainly encouraging to know that that's what we can fill. That's kind of the shoes we can step into. And as we continue to get better and maintain this improvement and productivity, we know what it is that we can reach as a ceiling because of our increased capacity. In the last 10 months, for example, and I'll show this figure again in a few moments, we've increased our productivity 100%. So you'll see the direction and the momentum that we've got going on in our lab right now. And I'm thrilled that this year, just a couple of months ago in April, for the first time ever since I arrived in this lab, which was a little more than 3 years ago now, we've completed more cases than we've had requests to perform work and analysis on. So I'm happy to see that. And again, it's just another great indication that is shared with our team, our management, and our wider public community to show them that we're doing what they're asking us to do and we're doing it well. We also set realistic but ambitious goals. That's changed because the old habit really, and I'm sure this is the same in multiple locations, is to just keep plodding along in that comfort zone. But in order to get better and to improve and to increase that momentum and productivity, you have to set some ambitious but realistic goals. And we've done that together, and I'd encourage you to do exactly the same. Don't just be happy, even if you're a highly productive lab that's getting the work done in a timely manner, still go ahead and set ambitious goals that are realistic and continue to improve, because losing that momentum eventually through exhaustion can lead to some kind of backtracking. And so for us, we set those goals that were realistic, but they were really ambitious. And then what we did in order to hold our feet to the fire was to publicize our expectations. So on local news channels, through public meetings, certainly to the command staff in our agency, all of our expectations and goals were publicized. And that makes me very nervous, but that's okay. That's why I have the role I have, and that's why my manager has their role too, so that we can continue to push that expectation downwards while also being accountable upwards for what it is that we really want to do. So here's what I was talking about a little while ago, just a really quick comparison of the 10 months in blue prior to implementing all of our changes in the lab. So the y-axis is just the percentage of cases cumulatively that were put out over that 10-month period. And so, of course, month 10 is 100% of what we did for the prior 10 months. And then comparing that to the 10 months directly after implementing the changes that we've done so far, we see an almost 200% realization of what we'd seen in the previous 10 months there. So with the curve still trending upwards for us, we're thrilled to see that we're going in the right direction. And for me, to know that this just involves 20% of the new personnel being productive in these figures gives me great hope that that will continue to rise and rise and rise over the next year to 2 years, and will certainly be in a wonderful position in the very near future. One of the things that really is exciting for me is to be able to change the instrumentation and the technology. Here's just a small number of the new instruments that we were able to bring on board during this period of change, from automated extraction robots to upgraded CE instruments and more consistent PCR instrumentation, and even a rapid DNA, the rapid hit ID DNA system for our CODIS confirmation samples. These all together, along with the new protocols, the new validations, the new chemistries, and certainly by no means least the new staffing, has caused us to have these increases in productivity and maintain that momentum. So why has the change been effective? Well, what we did first of all was identify our problems. And our problems were really with productivity. We were asked to do a job and we weren't getting it done in a timely manner. We were getting it done eventually, but we needed to get it done better, more efficiently, and more effectively. We set ourselves some very clear goals, timelines, dates, numbers that we had to achieve. And I would encourage you to do the same. Don't be fluffy and fuzzy about the things that you have to achieve. Be very clear and succinct in identifying what it is that you need and want to do. We garnished strong support, and that support was both from our leadership within my agency and the community at large. Again, that came with the publicizing of our expectations and our challenges too. But getting the leadership and the community on board with us and wanting to have us succeed was really important in obtaining their support. We, by no means, in a small way, partnershiped with Thermo Fisher Scientific for our validation studies, our upgraded chemistries, our new instrumentation, and I couldn't be more grateful to them for their help, their encouragement, and their constant and consistent crucial support over this time period. And we have big plans for the future too, where we're continuing to upgrade our workflows and our systems too. So that was certainly a huge part of our success. We had in-house commitment from those in the same level as myself and the bench level analysts too. And it's really important that as a management team, we're able to maintain enthusiasm and the resolution to succeed from the analysts on the ground who are actually implementing this change and performing the work that needs to be done. So finally, what does that mean? Well, for us to maintain this momentum, we have to say, what are our minimum expectations? What's the projections that we have in order to keep this going in the right direction? And here it is, and it might just look like numbers to you, but for me, these are realities. And so in the remainder of this current calendar year that we're in, we've predicted that at minimum, we're able to complete 152% of everything that we know because of the historical data we've gathered of all that we're going to be asked to do in this remaining portion of 2020. So that's great, and that is something that we have as a very clear goal to achieve. But then we needed to look ahead to 2021, and as we carry over the current backlog to next year as well, a portion of it at least, and expect to get the regular number of cases in-house for us to complete, we predict at minimum we will cover everything that we're asked to do, including that backlog, and by a little bit more. And again, I say that's at minimum. I do expect more, but I want to be realistic about what we expect. And if you're not realistic, then you're not going to maintain that momentum in progressing through the work that you need to do. So the result of that is very clear in my mind. And the result is that we're going to completely eliminate our backlog, and we're going to complete all of our in-house cases within our state-mandated time frame by the end of this year, which thrills me, and not only me, but also my leadership team too. In thinking about next year, it also means that we're going to have a surplus capacity available to us in 2021, which means that we can do even more, maybe decrease the turnaround times more, we can accept more case types of cases that we don't currently accept in our laboratory, and look ahead to other validation studies, research, and special projects that we have in our mind and in our hearts to get on with. So that's what we can look forward to because of this. And with that, I just want to thank you and hand it back to Shireen for any questions that might have come in during this presentation. Thank you very much.